Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to Apocaflix Movies and the Fandalorian Club as we are here for our usual Bad Batch reviews on a Friday afternoon talking the Star Wars animated series on Disney Plus, Bad Batch. And we are finally into episode 3 called Replacements. It has been titled Replacements. Gentlemen, how you guys doing? It's Friday. Weekend is upon us. Everyone good?
Thank God it's Friday. TGI Fridays.
Yeah, it's nice to be the weekend. It's been a long week.
It has been a long week, but and unlike last week, unfortunately, we had to wait a whole week to watch Bad Batch. It's been 7 solid days.
Threw me off so bad. I couldn't figure out which episode it was. I was like, is it 2, 3, or 4? But realized it was 3 when I started it.
Yeah, for here on out, every Friday we'll be here 4 o'clock Pacific, right here talking Bad Batch. And we have a really cool episode to talk about today. Very different episode. As I mentioned, it's titled Replacements, and that's essentially what the episode is. It is all about replacements. We're going to be diving in a bunch of stuff. Just start with some overall thoughts right here to start off, gentlemen. Brian, I'll go to you first. Just initial reaction to the episode, right? It's about a 27-minute episode or so. Very different from what we've gotten so far. What was your initial just gut reaction after finishing the episode this morning?
It was good. I'm not going to lie. Starting to get a little bored. I don't know. I'm starting to just kind of be like, all right, cool. But that's where I'm at. All right, cool. I mean, there was definitely its shocking moments. It had one in particular that caught me off guard, but other than that, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. That was a good one. But I don't know. I kind of almost feel like the first episode put my expectations too high, and nothing's going to be able to hit that.
Interesting. Jacob, do you feel the same?
Not fully, but I know where Brian's coming from. And I think we forget every time that they kind of do this with every animated season of Star Wars, where they open strong, then in the middle, and sometimes beginning with episode 2, it's like it feels like filler, but I don't really think it is, because it's like, okay, the ship crashes, we got to get this one part from this creature. That's basically what's going on with the crew. And then we see Tarkin with his soldiers, and we're getting all these details about the, replacements coming in to replace the clone troopers in the long run. So, yeah, it's not the most exciting episode, but I'm here for the details. We learned so much each episode, but nothing exciting is happening. And so I see where Brian's coming from, but I think in the long run, some of these episodes will pay off.
Yeah, I understand, but I do think this episode had a lot to say. I think there was a lot said in this episode about certain characters and things that are happening within the Empire specifically that are very exciting, whether they're set up or not. There's a lot of cool things that are happening currently that are happening very quickly in this universe, in this galaxy. And so let's dive into it. That way we can talk about everything. Where should we start, guys? Should we start with Omega? Should we start with Crosshairs? What do you guys think? I
think maybe the Tarkin and the clone stuff. I think that was arguably the most important thing going on in this episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think, so Tarkin essentially brings Crosshairs to lead a group of soldiers that are recruited to be the Bad Batch replacements, essentially. And they send them on the same mission to take care of Saw Gerrera's insurgents.
Partisans.
And say it again?
Partisans.
Well, yes, but they were called insurgents in the episode. They're not partisans just yet. So yeah, it's just a group of soldiers, non-clones, except for Crosshairs, who has obviously been tinkered with because of his chip. And they get the job done, but there is a casualty, and it's very interesting. And I'm just going to put this out there. I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to say it. I think that these are the Death Troopers. I don't know about you guys.
They have to
be, right?
They become the Death Troopers.
I think this is the first set of Death Troopers. Whether it's the ones we see in Rogue One or just the first band of them, I don't know. but it has to be the first set of Death Troopers.
I could see that, and with Crosshairs being the one who, like, the original leader of them,
Yeah.
and then he's the one who started that, and then it builds over time. I could see that.
They just look like them, right? And now after Crosshairs made that essential move of you follow the order, you do it or you die situation. Now they've really adapted this whole robot thing where they're just taking orders and doing the Empire's bidding, and that's a total Death Trooper vibe.
You hear what they were called? Not they were called, but the operation was called.
Yeah, it was from Rogue One, and I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it was one of the operations that Jin mentioned while going through the system looking for Stardust. And you probably have it off the top right there, right, Brian?
Yeah. Well, when I heard it, I immediately went Rogue One. They called it Project War Mantle.
Yes, War Mantle,
and that's one of the so far that might be a thing that he's playing off of all of those project names, because we've so far seen Black Saber, which is Dark Saber, War Mantle, Stardust. Could be a thing.
So are those all from that scene where Jin's trying to find the Stardust one?
Yeah, she's naming them off as she's looking.
Yeah.
War Mantle was one of them. So War Mantle could mean two things. One, the Death Troopers, or two, the transitions from clones to just regular soldiers, which is kind of what the episode was really about, transitioning out of clones and
this was like
adapting
the first
to
test
recruitment.
of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I thought, I don't know the officer's name, but basically the one that Tarkin, like the second-hand man, while he
promoted to an admiral. Yeah, he became an admiral.
I believe Rampart.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe he said that it's the ones who are willing to join the Empire and fight that like intrigues him the most, because the clones don't have a choice. They're bred and born to fight. They don't have a choice, right? They're literally programmed to. But he's saying, like, if somebody joins the cause and they do it willingly, they're going to be more loyal. They're going to, so that's where he's coming from. And I guess it's going to be cheaper for them, which cheaper is not always the best option. But
we see it in the original trilogy, right? How bad the stormtroopers shoot. It clearly doesn't work in their favor.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kind of backfires. Hard.
Eventually. I mean, we have a long time until that moment, and they take over the galaxy for 20 years. But yeah, it does seem like they're setting things up for the transition, which is going to be very cool, because it not only allows us to see as viewers the transitional phase of how clones transition out, what happens to them. There's a very bad way that it could go, or just a way that, could be a way of them disappearing essentially. But also the transformation into the OG Stormtrooper armor. Which is a big thing too. Like, is it the next phase that we see? Is there one in between before we get there? How does the Empire exactly find their bearings as far as like a look when we get to them in the original trilogy? Will that, because look, the Empire has shown so far that they're using chain codes. They're trying to find a new way to restore power. This elite squadron led by Crosshairs is one of them. They're obviously going to change the look of everything as well. We already saw that with Crosshair's armor. He has a straight black look now. So what is the next change as far as look? Is it the next Stormtrooper look, or is there something in between? What do you guys think?
Other than this Death Trooper look, that
the basic troopers, the troopers that are walking around every day, they're not going to look like clones.
Some of them kind of already look like it a little bit. Like, there was a scene where they were like, I forget what it was happening, but like all of them were running, and I was like, those look already like stormtroopers. So I don't know, because the black helmet essentially almost kind of looks like a stormtrooper helmet, like the one that they had, just black. So I mean, I don't think clones are ever going to wear the traditional stormtrooper outfit. I think they're just going to get the cheap, knockoffy person stormtrooper outfits that, I mean, the more and more we get into these shows and series, the more and more we realize how much the stormtroopers suck. Like,
Well, we always do that.
No, I know, but like it's more and more like every time we see like a series, like I have a feeling they're just gonna just be these like cheap bodies and cheap. I mean, we know that their armor just one bullet takes them out, whereas these the clones were a little bit more rugged and battle tested a little bit. So yeah, I think we'll just see eventual like just some people in the normal armor. They're gonna be like, these are replacing you. How I'm curious is what happens to all these clones, because there's a lot of clones that we keep seeing.
Yeah, well, most of the clone armor is similar to what it becomes in the original trilogy. So I think what probably is going to happen is that, you know, when the clones first happened, they all had different, like, there was like different groups that had different styles of it, right? And then they started customizing it to fit their personalities. I think Tarkin's like, nope, no customization, no unique designs, do plain design. It's cheaper. Nobody gets to be like their own person. Everybody has to fall in line and look the same. So I think slowly we'll see that come about.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not a fun time in the galaxy. It's very interesting. Yeah, you're right. It's Tarkin is clearly one of the head of everything at the moment. He's kind of running everything, and it makes sense, right?
He literally got promoted in the first 3 episodes. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he officially has it. Well, here's the thing with Tarkin though, and I just learned this. So yes, he has his Grand Moff insignia in this episode, but Tarkin actually has a government title and a military title.
I've said that for years.
Too,
and people always go, no.
He has both titles. So right now, in the episode, I mean, Jacob, I don't know if you caught this or not, but he went from his previous insignia to a Grand Moff title in this episode.
He went from just an admiral to a Grand Admiral,
which is kind of a retcon because he actually gets the Grand Moff title in the Tarkin novel, which is still a few years out.
Yeah,
but they didn't actually like point to it. They never said anything about it. He just had it.
Yeah, well, they've already retconned canon before, so it's not a big deal. Like something small like that is not a big deal.
Well, and also the Tarkin novel was the only thing that was brought over in canon when in novels when Disney bought the property, because it was written beforehand. It was Tarkin. It was Tarkin and Clone Wars were the two things that were brought over when Disney bought Star Wars, and so it kind of can be one of the things that you do retcon because it is so far back.
Yeah, and I mean they did it in the Mandalorian with what's his name's character in episode 1 of season 2.
Cobb Vanth.
Yeah, they did it with Cobb Vanth, so they're already kind of doing that. So that's fine. And yeah, that Tarkin is, and I've always considered that too because Leia calls him governor in A New Hope, but he's also Grand Moff. So that makes sense because if somebody was, I mean, I'm guessing governor of the galaxy is what he is. I don't know. But if somebody was the governor of a city, they wouldn't also be like, if they were in the military, it would be a different title. You know, if they were a general or something, they wouldn't be called governor in the military. So that's pretty cool that he has both those titles.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to be interesting. He obviously seems to be the guy behind everything right now in Bad Batch, kind of the main villain. We had talked about that earlier. I think it might have been episode 1 where we thought he might have been the main villain. But let's go and shift gears a little bit. Let's get to the Bad Batch themselves because they went on a very interesting journey here. It starts off with their ship essentially just breaking down. They crash land on a planet. And there's also a really, really cool moment between Wrecker and Omega when Wrecker straps her in and he's yelling, "We're going to die, we're going to die." And he keeps forgetting that they have a young kid next to him and kind of like looks over like, no, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Uncle Wrecker kind of making jokes. Previously, he basically stole her food or almost did, which was great as well. But yeah, they end up on this planet and very similar to Empire Strikes Back, if you will, with Han and Leia. They end up on that rock.
Yeah.
very similar. And so what do you guys think about the startup? Before we get to the Omega stuff and the Hunter stuff later on in the episode, just kind of the beginnings of everything. Were you expecting them to stay on the planet the whole episode, or what did you think of everything going on? Jacob, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I like the moments with the crew no matter what's going on. Like, I can just watch them hang out on the ship. Like, it's entertaining. But I think this is where Brian was kind of alluding to, like, this felt very like random Clone Wars episode that like we don't really care about, oh, the ship is breaking down. We crash land. We got to get this part and fix it. I mean, except they had to take it from this creature, this creature. Usually it's like a live being that they're taking it to, somebody they could talk to. So it was fun. I enjoyed the whole setup and everything. And I'm just liking the way that Omega's being integrated into the group. I think that's pretty important because they got to make us care about her and believe their relationships with the rest of the crew. So it was pretty cool.
Brian?
Yeah, she definitely doesn't want to just be someone that's there. Like, she said, like, I'm a part of your crew now. Like, I'm a part of the Bad Batch, not just someone tagging along. Because I could have gotten off over there, and you can see Hunter like, all right, well, you're not wrong. So yeah, I liked that part. And then and Jacob's right, this is kind of where it lost me a little bit. It reminded me very much of the Frog Lady episode where they're stuck on the spider planet. I literally thought the spider planet, the spider was going to come out of those little caverns. So I was getting this, like, I almost kind of felt like I was getting almost the same exact story with this part, except they just needed a part to fix their ship. So, but I'm just waiting for her to use that crossbow thing. Like, that's, can't wait.
Is that one of Crosshair's weapons, or does she get it on her own later?
See, that's after this episode. That's what I was thinking when they knocked over Crosshair's, or excuse me, when she knocked over Crosshair's bucket of toys, if you will. And that's a moment that we really can't look over as well. They got emotional, right? And at the end of the episode, they finally say, like, look, we miss him. Sucks.
We talked about that last week. Like, are they going to kill Crosshair? Are they going to try to save him? Like, so this was hinting towards that.
Well, and both sides of it as well. I know we're away from the question here, but so that the beginning of the episode, they kind of like rethink a little bit after she knocks over the bucket of toys. At the end of the episode, they finally say, like, we miss him. Like, I just miss the guy being around. He's part of the team. Also, on the flip side, we get some moments with Crosshairs as well inside their bunk when they're back in their room where the Bad Batch used to stay. And you can kind of see it as well there. Also, we saw him getting his chip worked on, which means it might not be something that just sticks. He might have to continuously be worked on.
That would make maybe they have to reset it every time.
A great parallel is he is essentially the Winter Soldier. You can look at him being very similar to the Winter Soldier, where they had to reshape him if thoughts started going into his head. And it seems very similar to the thing going on with Crosshairs at the moment.
Reminds me of like he's like a rechargeable battery. Like, you can put him at full strength if you do this, put it back on the charger, but eventually if you just don't do anything, he's just gonna not be dead, but in this sense be not the peak weapon that you are hoping for. So
I think he might go back to what he was before they enhanced the chip, and
which isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. No. He was like half douche at that point, like he was still a little evil in there. And he still wanted to follow orders, but as we found out, his chip was the most active, strongest one, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of chips, did you guys catch that Wrecker was holding his head a couple times during this episode?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he get hurt when they landed?
So he hit his head.
Yeah,
but he had mentioned it a couple times during the episode. I'm thinking his chip might go off soon.
Oh, you don't want that.
That's what I'm saying. He's the worst one that you want the chip to go off. But if you watch the episode, he's doing this a couple times, right?
Yeah.
Like right where the chip is, or like just holding his head. And obviously, he has a giant hand, but there's a possibility. I mean, that would be terrifying because I don't know how they would stop him.
Yeah, I thought that, or maybe which I don't know how this worked, but like it got like dislodged or something, and it's like
maybe it just triggered it. It was a small trigger.
No, I'm not talking about triggering it or anything. I'm talking about the fact that it's like dislodged and causing him pain or something, and they need to remove it or something. And in this process, figure out a way to how to remove the chips from inside their heads. I don't know. That was just like, obviously, like I thought of what you thought of, which was like, oh crap, like it hit the on switch or something. But then I was kind of like trying to think of like something other than that, because it's an obvious, which doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And I was just like, well, maybe now he needs to somehow get it out. It did something and now they have to get it out. And that could be their process to getting them out, a la later on, maybe getting it out of Crosshair's head too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's possible. But I at the moment when I saw that, I was like, oh, he just hurt his head, because they made him stay back and not do anything. But who knows? I mean, that's a strong possibility, especially because that's basically what this show is about right now, is the chips. And yeah,
it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously he stayed behind and he was able to create a nice little bunk for Omega, which was very, very sweet. Her own little cave. But let's talk about Omega for a little bit. Do you guys think, or I'll reword that. Did this episode make you think different from where your thoughts were beforehand last week about maybe her abilities, where she's kind of headed as a character, what her special power is, if she is in fact enhanced? Did this episode sway you in any direction?
There were a couple times that she did things that I was like, how did she know? And I don't remember what it was, but then it kind of like it was told. I think the thing that made me, when she found the crate or whatever, in the ship. Yeah, it was just, I don't know if anything swayed me. I think I might be just more looking for it now for any sign of force or anything.
I think the clearest one for me was how fast she was able to pick up something like tracking after watching Hunter, because she tracked the dragon down relatively quickly and like found the dragon. I don't know if I'm looking into it again just because I'm looking for it. But,
well, didn't she see it go into the hole?
Yeah, but she also had to follow caves, is what I'm saying. She had to dig through and go down below. I don't think it was just one single tunnel.
Yeah, I don't know. Through and went through.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like underneath it might have been multiple different tunnels to find. Like that's still relatively difficult to do. And not knowing what tracking is. Like she literally had just asked Hunter 5 seconds beforehand, what are you doing? And Hunter says, I'm tracking. And she goes, what's that? And again, this just could be me looking.
So that's when the conversation happens where Hunter tells her about their abilities, how they each have abilities.
Yes.
And is there anything that she says after that hints towards her having abilities? Because I don't remember what she said to that.
She doesn't say anything. She just picks up the dirt and starts doing
it's not really saying. It's more so the things that she's done in the first 3 episodes that are hinting towards it. Like the first episode, she shot Crosshair's gun out of his hand. Like she shot a blaster out of Crosshair's.
It made me think when you were saying that she picked up the hunting quickly. What if they tried to give one clone all of those abilities, because they realized they made these 4 special clones? They're like, what if we can put all of these abilities into one? Because she showed sharpshooting, she demonstrated the hunting.
Is she going to turn into the yoked?
We haven't seen her exhibit strength.
She wouldn't even have to. She could just literally pick something up and she'd be yoked.
So if we see her exhibit strength, then all she has to do, I don't know how Tech is so tech savvy. I don't know exactly how his powers work, but that could be a possibility. What if she has all 4, and then when she's an adult, she's going to be super powerful.
Yeah.
Does anybody still think that she may have the Force?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
I'm
never
like-
thought so.
I'm like 25, 75 being no.
I'm lower than I was last week. I think I'm getting away from it, and I think that's what I want. I don't think I want her to have the Force, because they are going to encounter a Jedi at some point. They are.
Oh yeah,
At some point. So I don't want Omega to have it when they do encounter that Jedi, because that Jedi is going to know.
Me neither. And because every time a new Force user comes up, whether it's Grogu or anyone, we're like, oh my goodness, what happens to them? Where do they go? Where are they now? And it's like, sure, that's cool with some characters. Like, I'm fascinated with what happened to Grogu, but like, I don't want that to happen with a bunch of characters. And yeah, it's just too much. And the thing is, then we're like, oh, did she become a Jedi? Did she become a Sith? Like, I don't want to talk about that with her. I think she's just an enhanced clone with maybe all of their abilities, or a few of them.
Speaking of clones, let's talk about the Kaminoans, because we only saw a little bit in this episode. But the one big thing but also the one big thing they mentioned is that Jango Fett's DNA essentially is going bye-bye.
That's big. We didn't know that, and it makes sense because I've always wondered, like, why wouldn't they just keep making clones forever? You know what I mean? Like, so that makes sense.
So who out there could be their next subject? Because Kaminoans are cloners. That's what they do. They're going to continue to clone unless they get wiped out. Where do you guys think this is headed? Do you think there's a Kaminoan uprising on its way? Do you think they get wiped out? Do you think that they just kind of disappear and start cloning again? What's the idea behind all this?
I've said right away that I think that they're going to get wiped out. I think that their little floating headquarters are going to sink into the ocean.
I feel like they'll be able to live in the ocean.
No, because they use those flying things to go in the water. That I think they're called awayas. So no. They look like they can be in the water, but I don't think they can.
Man,
either way, if they can be in the water, their stuff's going to get destroyed.
Yeah. So they said, should we move on to the next phase? Or they say something like that. And I'm not sure what that is. So were they implying that they're going to have to find a new subject for cloning?
I think that's what they're talking about.
So they can't like, for example, they can't take Crosshairs and start making clones off of him because he was a clone from Jango Fett.
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't make sense. So I'm not sure, man. I mean, obviously cloning is a big part of Star Wars, right? We know it comes into effect in The Mandalorian, and it affects the Rise of Skywalker. Like, it's the furthest point in Star Wars we've gotten. Cloning is part of it. So does the Empire, or does Palpatine somehow use the Kaminoans later when he starts cloning again? And we got that officer with the Kamino badge and all that stuff in Mandalorian. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting because we haven't, until this is the furthest we've seen the Kamino, right? Like that we've seen Kamino. Like we've never seen them again after this point, as far as we know, right?
Other than just that badge that you just said.
Yeah, exactly. So that's as far as we know.
But the planet itself, we haven't.
Where are they? Where'd they go? Yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out. And that's why I like this show, because we're finding out so much more information, which is cool.
They're filling a lot of gaps that haven't been talked about in a long time. And things that we never knew we needed in Star Wars, which is really cool. I do think that they're probably going to get wiped out, but I don't want it to happen before I see what their plan is. Like, I really want to see like what they're doing, because they've obviously been doing something for a while. They've been planning something for a while. I would love to see who their new subject possibly could be. Would it be Boba Fett instead of Jango Fett? I mean, is that a possibility?
Maybe, because he's not altered.
No, I mean he's not an altered clone like the rest of them. Could it possibly be Boba who comes in, and that's a good way of seeing him? Or could it be something completely different, or maybe a mixture of DNA? I mean, maybe they're so advanced at this point, right? It's well past Attack of the Clones, and maybe they've been able to evolve as far as their cloning abilities, and they figure something out, and they want to, like we had mentioned, maybe they want to do another Omega if this is what happens to her, and combine a lot of things and create these, in for lack of a better term, super soldiers, if you will, that are on their side and not selling to like the Republic or the Empire or anything. It could be some very interesting stuff, especially if they age at a rapid pace.
Yeah, so Jango Fett was chosen for a reason. I'm guessing in their world, like he's the ultimate soldier, so, and he's, physically fit, the right body size, all that stuff. So I think it would have to be somebody like that. And who's around, who knows? So would it be a character we know, or maybe somebody we don't? That could be interesting.
It could be anyone.
Like nobody's there on Kamino that we know of.
Yeah, it could use, literally. Yeah. I mean, well, at this point, all the Jedi are gone, so it's probably not a Jedi. Not all the Jedi, but 99.9% of the Jedi are gone. It's a time of bounty hunters. It's a time of soldiers. I don't know. I mean, maybe they do find a way to pull DNA from Crosshairs. I mean, maybe there is that possibility where they do pull it from him, and like they've advanced to a point where they can get his DNA. I don't know.
Maybe every single clone of him is enhanced, like you said. So that
just
would be scary.
A ragtag group of dickheads.
But obviously, I mean, as far as we know, the Kaminoans don't succeed. Like they at least don't succeed and then build their own thing apart from the Empire, because we don't know about them.
They aren't in the galaxy in 20 years.
Yeah.
There's a 20-year, or at least I'd probably say 15 years, because in Rebels, they're nowhere to be seen. So before that, there's a gap where they could possibly have been running around doing stuff, and maybe they got wiped out within that time period.
Yeah, for sure.
The only thing that keeps me thinking that they're still around, or someone was able to recreate them, is that patch.
In the Mandalorian.
Patch is not a coincidence.
No, not at all.
So I'm curious.
Well, he's a clone specialist or a clone doctor or something. So
he's not a Kaminoan himself, which makes it even more interesting.
So he must have worked for them. Maybe he was. I can imagine, like, if the Empire goes and let's say they slaughter them, they're gonna probably want to take some clone specialists with them, obviously, because that guy ends up
Dr. Pershing is his
working
name.
with them.
I just remembered his name.
Yeah, so I can see a situation where they go in, take out anybody who's not complying, and then say, okay, you're going to be our clone specialist now. So I could see that.
Yeah, it's possible that for the next 15 years or so, 10 years, however long, that the Empire implants doctors or some kind of specialists with the Kaminoans to learn and then wipe them out.
That would make sense, yeah.
And they have all the things that they need to do cloning, because obviously we know that Palpatine, he's all about the cloning. Now the question becomes: is it the Kaminoans, or is it someone else that's doing it for him? In the future, it seems like it's someone else and not the Kaminoans, but there's a possibility for a lot of time to be told where there is a story of them getting wiped out or being the reason that we do have so many Palpatines in the future. Or Snokes, or Rey's, or Palpatine's sons.
Whoever's. Anyone's.
Yeah, seriously. It's going to be interesting, though. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I never expected the Bad Batch to dive into the history of the Kaminoans. And I also never knew I needed their story to be told, quite honest. Like, it's a story that, like, I love what everything about the Bad Batch is doing, like the bringings of the Empire and the possibility of starting the Death Troopers and all this stuff. But out of all of it, like, I never went into this thinking I want the Kaminoan story to be told. Now it's one of the things that I look forward to seeing because it's such an interesting dynamic within this whole story.
And it makes most sense too.
Yeah,
when you're telling the end of or the beginning of the Empire when there's no clone.
Yeah,
trooper.
exactly. Yeah. So that's because I didn't watch all the trailers for this leading up to it, so I wasn't sure. I was just expecting like the Bad Batch that are out in the galaxy doing their thing, and we're just following them. I didn't know we were gonna get like larger galaxy details, which that's like my favorite part of this so far. So because we're getting the Kaminoans, and the Empire too. So
I mean, there's a lot of sides. We're getting both those. I'm sure at some point we're gonna get somewhat of Rebels in there hit and miss.
Oh, and we're getting a little bit of the Saw Gerrera
stuff. Saw Gerrera stuff, which Brian mentioned, the beginnings of the Partisans. We're going to see Bounty Hunter Life. We're going to see Fennec Shan at some point. I'm sure we'll see Boba Fett at some point and what he's doing. So it's kind of like hitting all of these aspects of Star Wars in these corners that are going on in this current state of the galaxy, which is incredibly interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm curious. You know what they haven't really touched on yet, and maybe they don't even do it on the show, is like, how did the Empire eliminate like people even remembering that the Jedi existed? And like that happened quick. So I'm curious to see if maybe they dive into that later on in this season or season 2 or something.
Well, and we haven't talked about it, and we can spend 5-10 minutes or however long in this, but Crosshair's just eliminating people who have been around in the galaxy and who have believed in the people like the Jedi and the Republic, and who are wanting to escape off world, right? And he essentially says no prisoners. They are as the soldier who got executed by Crosshairs, who was a very interesting character, by the way. Like, I was kind of bummed that he did die. I thought he would have been a really cool.
He was the one who said like, "Oh, the Empire pays me and stuff," and the New Republic never did that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
That's interesting.
I would have loved to have seen the character throughout a couple episodes, but it did make sense. But what I was saying is that they are essentially an execution squad. That the Empire they are becoming executioners, and there is a possibility
especially if they're death troopers.
Well, they could end up wiping out a lot of people who believed in all of that, and that just disappears with them.
Yeah, no, that could make sense. I mean, I could totally see that because that's one of the biggest mysteries to me in all of Star Wars is how did we go in 30 years or 20 years, whatever, to like thousands of Jedi, and then like nobody even remembers that they existed. Like Din and Mandalorian doesn't even know they were real.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't even know what the Force is called.
Yeah, exactly. So how does it go from that's like 30 years from now, like nobody knows what Jesus and God is. Like that would be so weird. Like it's that fast for it to be just eliminated from society. So curious to see.
I think a lot of it's fear, probably too.
True. And it's like you're not allowed to talk about it or anything like that. And then eventually
it's like saying Voldemort.
All the generations slowly lose all the information, and then nobody remembers. And then
what's funny is that it's only one extra generation. That's what's funny about it.
Yeah, so
it's not even that far away.
It probably became illegal to even talk about it, like to even talk about Jedi.
I think it was just a fear thing, very much.
Well, Vader and the Inquisitors and just the rise of the Empire and everything and how formidable they came. People were terrified. We saw that in the original trilogy. They were just terrified. Yeah. They imposed their will, and their will essentially said, you say this, you do this, you're dead. And if that's the case, then nobody's going to want to say or do anything that relates to the Republic, the Jedi, the good times, whatever it may have been. And we're seeing all of that take place in the show, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, gentlemen. Well, any final thoughts on Bad Batch Episode 3 replacements before we get out of here?
I'm excited for more. I mean, I will say the one thing that I'm very curious to see is what the clone army, what happens to them, and the Kaminoans do, because Lamasu at the end was like, we got to do something. So I'm very curious to see what this plan is going forward and how this may interfere with the Empire.
Well, that's important because, who has control of the clones? It ultimately the Kaminoans do, right? I mean,
yes.
they have officers there from the Empire, but what happens if the Kaminoans turn the clones on the Empire. Maybe that's what happens, and then there's a little civil war real quick, and then it's over with at the end of this season, and that's how they get wiped out, or most of them, the ones who don't decide to go with the Empire. So, yeah, I'm excited to see, how the overall galaxy and the cloning stuff furthers, and I do want to see Omega get involved in the action a little bit more. Like I want to see that crossbow or whatever she has.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's going to happen because I think next episode we're going to see them get into kind of the mercenary life, the bounty hunting life. I think they're far enough away from the Empire at the moment where it might become a Bad Batch bounty hunting, and then on the other side, Empire versus Kaminoans camp, and we're kind of going to get to, and then interchanging every once in a while. Because that's what I want to see. I want to see them go on a mission. I want to see them track down a bounty or make some money, because eventually that's what they're going to become full time. For whatever may happen. So super, super excited. Ferris, we just covered the Kaminoans. Literally, for 10, 15 minutes, we were just talking about them. But they're up to some stuff, man. So rewind it once we're done. Check that out. We had some interesting thoughts on that. But we're gonna head out of here, guys. We're gonna wrap this up. Fandalorian Club. We're gonna finish this up today. Again, every Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific, right here on this channel. We're talking Bad Batch. We are 3 episodes in. We have 13 left. So we will be here every single Friday for the next 13 weeks talking Bad Batch Star Wars. And it seems like it's going to be kicking up a notch here very soon. They had the one episode where they were on, single planet for an episode. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty stuff. Let's see the good stuff, and we'll see what it's all about. But for now, for Jacob, Brian, and myself, thank you guys so much for watching. We greatly appreciate all the support from everybody. Make sure you guys are checking out Apocaflix now every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific, right here on this channel. This week's going to be a fun one. Don't miss it. This week's going to be a fun one. Also, check out Jacob and Gio's Army of the Dead review, which is on the channel.
Yes.
They got a chance to watch it last night on its opening night, so you can check that out. Zack Snyder's new zombie film. Go check out the review there. But for now, for the Fandalorian Club, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will catch you guys next week. May the Force be with you.